The rumors of his exit were accelerated today with the firing of Chicago Bulls head coach Tom Thibodeau.
That's why sports director Keith Murphy is making a special appearance on the 4 o'clock news. This is top of mind for everybody. Let's back up, though, and talk about the reason we're talking about this, which is Thibodeau finally being fired. I guess I'm kind of curious about why, since he has a good record.
He's taken the Bulls to the playoffs 5 straight seasons. You're right, he does have a good record, 255 and 139. But today, in announcing the firing of Thibodeau, the general manager, Gar Forman, who used to be an assistant at Iowa State when Fred Hoiberg was a player, by the way, and John Paxson, who is the vice president of basketball operations, they said that they were not on the same page as the head coach, that they had different ideas of how the program should be run, that they just didn't share the same philosophy. And he kept talking. Both of them kept talking, but it sounded like if you've ever known two people that you could tell for a long time were headed for a divorce,
yeah.
And then they get divorced and no one is surprised. This was Tom Thibodeau and the Bulls. You could see this coming for months.
How long had he been the coach?
He'd been the coach for 5 years, took the Bulls to the playoffs all 5 years, never got them to the finals. And that's a point of contention because the bar is so high in Chicago,
Yeah.
6 NBA championships during the Jordan era.
All right, so let's talk about our guy, Fred Hoiberg.
Right.
He's obviously attractive to all of us because we know him as a great guy. And
you're not talking about him just being handsome.
No.
Well, he's
Right.
gorgeous, off the record.
Too, of course. Okay, aside from that, he's kind of the poster boy for, being a good guy on the court, off the court, treating his players well. Obviously has been successful at Iowa State, so none of us want to lose him. But what makes him attractive to an organization like the Bulls?
Great question. He is the presumed guy that the Bulls want. I think everybody feels like the Bulls will offer Fred Hoiberg the job. Here's what General Manager Gar Forman said they're looking for in a coach. This is what he said today, and I'll add a little bit of my commentary here. Right person, right fit, Hoiberg. Leader, Hoiberg. Great communication skills, Hoiberg. Excellent knowledge of the game, Hoiberg. Open and creative learner, Hoiberg. Tom Thibodeau ran a kind of a slower-paced offense, and many people these days like to see high scoring, run up and down the court, shoot the threes, flying up and down. Hoiberg coaches that kind of style, and he has shown time and time again that he can take players, even players who haven't worked out really anywhere else, like Royce White, and Hoiberg seems to have just the right touch with those guys to get them all pulling on the same end of the rope. So he is viewed as a great NBA coach in waiting, and the recruiting is kind of a grind to Hoiberg, and he's a basketball nerd. And when he gets to the NBA, the job is coaching basketball.
Yeah.
The job at Iowa State is kind of icon, and I think that can be tiresome at times. It is a lot to shoulder.
And he's the one guy, though, in all of this that we have not heard from yet on this topic.
Haven't heard from him in weeks, though. He did have open heart surgery. He is not back at the job full time yet, so there's not even really much of an opportunity to see Fred Hoiberg at this point. But I think the fact he hasn't said anything, there's so much smoke that we know there is a fire, that he would say something. Iowa State recruiting has been brought to a standstill. The program is basically in paralysis right now until everybody can move forward. And by the way, just moments ago, several Cyclone fans sent me an email that they received today as Cyclone Club members. They're being asked today to renew their season tickets. Now, that could be coincidental timing, but if nothing else, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, speaking of timing, what do you think the timing is here? When will we know something or anything?
Well, the Bulls said with a straight face today that they haven't talked to anybody. Now,
right. Sure.
That could technically be true because a lot of times in order to create plausible denial, this is done through an agent or a middleman. That often happens in these kind of negotiations. I think it's inconceivable that they fire Tom Thibodeau and, by the way, owe him $9 million to kick him out the door. I think it's inconceivable that they do that if they don't think they have their next guy. And I think their next guy is Fred Hoiberg. But people change their minds. And I think we have to allow for that possibility. And many of the Cyclone fans who have told me that they are just torn up by this, but now they're ready to move on, that they need to go ahead and turn the page, that they realize Fred is probably leaving. It's time to deal with it. If Fred came out today and said, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm staying, they would run into the streets and celebrate.
Well, or go to Minnesota. I have my little brother is dying for him to go to the Timberwolves.
The Timberwolves are still in play. He was an executive there. He was a player there. There are much lower expectations. It's closer to Ames. He has a lake house in Minnesota. He had open heart surgery at the Mayo Clinic.
There you go.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's my vote.
You know, it could come down where the Bulls don't realize that maybe Fred has another option, and that could work out to Hoiberg's favor. And who knows, Iowa State remains an option as well because he's still the head coach.
Exactly. It's good to have options.
He's got lots of them.
These are first world problems.
They truly are. All right, we'll continue to talk about this one. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks.